Beverly Olivan. I knew it was going to happen sooner or later. The pressure was building from both my mother and from the school for me to take part in some musical pursuit, an idea that I found both uninteresting and terrifying. After dinner, my sister would often play the flute, and even I, who had no musical skills whatsoever and absolutely no ear, could appreciate the wonderful music that filled the house. She clearly had serious talent. I couldn't sing or keep a tune no matter how hard I tried. There was relief in knowing that my father couldn't either. Only my mother and sister had inherited that gene. The only question my mother contemplated was what instrument I was going to be forced to learn. I tried to put the drums in the running, figuring that banging on stuff wouldn't be too hard to learn, but that was taken off the table instantly. Finally, the vote was in. I was to take up the violin, probably the worst choice my mother could ever make. A few days after the decision was made, without my consent, a violin appeared in our house. I was told that with enough practice, I would come to love creating perfect music with it. I gave in and began the tedious task of pulling a bow across angry strings. 6 months in, I was given the last chair in the orchestra with no hope of ever moving beyond. I named the rented violin Bertha after my second-grade teacher, whose high, shrill voice got the crows crying outside the classroom. Bertha, the violin, not the teacher, and I were enemies from the moment I stuck her under my chin. My mother pushed me to practice, but even she couldn't stand the screeching that came out of the den. After a few months of torture on everyone's part, I was relegated to playing Bertha in the basement. All the practice did nothing to improve my skills. In fact, I thought I was getting worse. I was so frustrated. I wanted an instrument like the guitar that had frets so you could see where to put your fingers and you didn't have to feel up and down like you did with the violin. Even Sparky, my sweet puppy, could not stand the sounds coming out of the basement. He would howl until my mother finally would say, "Okay, dear, that's enough for today. You gave it your best effort." The truth was, I wasn't giving it my best effort. I was doing my best to get worse so I could give up the stupid thing once and for all. The end came when I pushed against the strings so hard in anger that one of them broke. Bertha was finally putting up a fight. We were locked in a battle to see who would fall apart first. I won. I picked up Bertha by the neck and I smashed her across the ping pong table, breaking her fragile wooden body in two and silencing her forever. Wow! My sister, sitting on the stairs to the basement, had seen it all. "I can't believe that," she said. "I can't believe you did that. Mother is going to be so angry." "It was an accident," I cried. "I was trying to fix the string and it slipped out of my hand." "Sure," she laughed, "and it jumped over to hit a few ping pong balls too." I hated it was my only defense. My sister came down the stairs and picked up the broken pieces. Poor Bertha, she never had a chance. We looked at Bertha, then at one another for a moment, and then we both burst out laughing. "So," she asked, "what are you going to tell Mother?" "The question is, what are you going to tell her?" I said. "You tripped on a ping pong ball and it fell right on old Bertha. She may be Mother's favorite, but my sister was not going to rat me out. We were still a team. When I was cleaning up the violin pieces later that afternoon, something in the corner caught my eye. It was a letter to my father from a real estate company in California. Now that I had murdered poor Bertha, I felt empowered. I opened the letter. For a year now, my father had been talking about moving us across the country to California, that this small town in Illinois would not provide the best future for our family. Mother resisted the idea and thought the whole project was now put to bed. But clearly, my father had other plans. My sister was in the backyard raking leaves. Sparky was running in circles around her, barking at the rake and biting at the leaves. He couldn't decide if the rake was an enemy he had to take down, a toy for him to play with. I wanted to rush out and tell her what I'd found. We never kept secrets from each other. She waved when she saw me, and I remembered all the times just a few years back when we'd love to rake the leaves, the rainbow of colors, orange, yellow, red, into big piles, and then jump into them. How I wanted to do that right now. Instead, I crept off to our bedroom to think about what I would do next. It would be hours before my father was home from work, and I could confront him with the letter I found and ask for an explanation. And then there was the issue of the broken violin. How was I going to tell my parents about it? Even if my sister held her tongue, would they believe it was an accident? And then there would be the question of replacing it, and I had no idea how expensive it was. I waited outside the garage for my father to come home. He was late that night, not getting home until almost 7 o'clock. When he saw me, his face showed concern. What was I doing waiting for him? Had something happened? "Come on, Sparky," he called, and the dog ran over to his side. "Let's take the dog for a little walk, and we can talk." Sparky was impossible to walk. He didn't know the meaning of walk, only run, chase me, and throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. My father put his arm around my shoulder, and we walked into the garage. I told him I found the letter from California and asked him, "Are we moving?" "I don't know yet," he said. "I found the perfect house in Los Angeles. You've got to promise not to tell your mother about this. Let me talk to her when the time is right. Let's keep it a secret between the two of us." And those words changed everything. I was his special confidant. He could trust me. It was a secret between us, just my father and I. And the bond between my father and I felt so good when a sneaky thought crept into my mind. Maybe there was something I could trade for my silence. "Well, this is a very big secret," I said solemnly. "I promise to keep it." "Good girl. Now let's get into dinner before your mother wonders what we're doing out here for so long." He put his arm around me and started to walk towards the house. "Well," I said, stopping him, "maybe there's a promise you can make me, too." "What's that?" he said. "Well, Bertha had a little accident this afternoon." "Who is Bertha?" my father asked. "You remember, Bertha is the name I gave to my violin." A smile that was full of friendly suspicion formed on his handsome face. "And what, may I ask, happened to Bertha?" "She took a fall, a bad one." "Was it a fatal fall?" he said, holding back a laugh. "Yes," I said, "I'm afraid it was." "Now, did Bertha do this all on her own, or did you give her some help?" "I might have helped," I said quietly. "So what do you want me to do?" my father asked. "Don't tell Mother," I replied. "How about we say I returned the violin to the school myself when I realized my daughter didn't have the talent for it?" "Well, that's good. I'll save my allowance and pay you back, even if it takes years." "Well, that's fair," he said, "but I don't think it'll take years. Bertha was a second-hand lady without much life in her. We won't tell your sister either." "She knows because she saw it happen. We can trust her." "Poor Bertha," my father said. "The truth is, no one in this house is going to miss her."